Hey, welcome to World Entertainment, and it looks like we dodged a bullet when it comes to J.D. Pine and Patrick McKay's potential Star Trek film. Yes, the one that's not happening, was never going to happen. Went through 150 different leading people. But that one specifically was the one that was going to reunite Chris Hemsworth's George Kirk with Chris Pine's James T. Kirk. So the Rings of Power bosses reveal their scrap Star Trek film's plot. And oh boy, this also shows you just how talented these hacks are. When you're listening to them discuss Rings of Power, they constantly bring up better projects. They're always bringing up, obviously, Tolkien's books, even though it's clearly that they've never read the bloody things. They're always referencing the Peter Jackson films. They attributed season 1 to being Batman Begins, and season 2, when it comes out, will be The Dark Knight. All this stuff. So, wait till you hear how bad this thing was going to be. So, J.D. Pine and Patrick McKay, aka Dumb and Dumber, showrunners of Amazon's Rings of Power, revealed that they once had a Star Trek script in the works. Yeah, we know. And it was scrapped. These guys, until Rings of Power, they've never been credited on anything. Anyway, in an interview with Esquire, Dumb and Dumber went into detail on their abandoned Star Trek movie. I may have added the Dumb and Dumber, which would have reunited Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pine. Payne revealed that the plot asked, what if right before the Calvin impacted with that huge mining ship, George Kirk had to try to beam himself over to his wife's shuttle, where his son, Jim Kirk, had just been born? And what if the ship hadn't completely exploded? What if it left some space junk? It gets worse, by the way. McKay added that the film was going to be a grandfather-son space adventure. Here we go. Think Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in space. Already they've had to attribute it to a better property. We had an original villain and a really cool 2001 A Space Odyssey-esque sci-fi idea at the core. So now they've compared it to two separate movies. We worked on it for 2.5 years with Lindsay Weber, who is also a part of the Rings of Power. She is the bad reboot crony that is at Amazon now. Our non-writing executive producer on Rings of Power, and an amazing director, S.J. Clark, who was going to be the first female, but she left and done something else. Payne and McKay aren't the only ones who had ideas about the new direction of Star Trek. Captain Kirk actor William Shatner pitched an ending to Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, which he said involved going down the river... What? Styx? Well, how you pronounce it? And meeting God, blah, blah, blah. These two idiots' plan, though, was going to be... Get this, right? So, if any of you have ever watched the Star Trek 2009 movie, the opening scene is the starship Calvin, the USS Calvin, encountering the villain of the movie, Nero, and his mining ship, which does have a name. I can't remember what the hell it was called. Who cares? It's an instant Star Wars moment. Oh, just quick, shoot everything. So, Hemsworth, George Kirk, evacuates the ship, is going to do a collision course of the Calvin into the mining ship. The autopilot is not working, so he has to manually fly it in. So, he's speaking and hearing Kirk being born. They name it. He says, I love you, blah, blah, blah. And the ships smash into one another. And we see him go flying. He's on the bridge. He goes flying with all the explosion behind him, and we see the ship destroyed. So Dumb and Dumber here's idea was 20, 30, 40 something years later, Kirk and the Enterprise decide we gotta go and find the debris of the Calvin. Why? When have you ever seen in any Star Trek movie, TV show, anything, when they say a ship got destroyed, or we need to go and get it? And not just is it we need to go and get it, it's, now that it's like 20 something, maybe 30 something years later, we need to go and get it. Makes no sense, does it? But they go and they copy the Next Generation episode Relic, where the Enterprise D comes across a Dyson sphere, and they find a ship crashed on the surface of it, the outer surface. And when they beam over, they discover, hey, there's a pattern in the transporter buffer here. What's going on? And they activate, and it's Scotty. Scotty has spent 75 years in the transporter. They knew the ship was going down, and they calibrated the transporter to hold their pattern. Him and another crew member. The other crew member's pattern had decayed too much, so they couldn't bring him back. And that was their idea. That's where they got the whole idea for this, is, they find debris of the Calvin. They go on board. How they go on board this, don't know. And of course, they come across the transporter and go, hey, it's working. And they activate, and voila. George Kirk, Chris Hemsworth. These guys haven't got an idea of their own to save their lives. Half of the Rings of Power is repurposed dialogue from the Fellowship of the Rings and the Two Towers and Return of the King. And they keep telling you, we went back to the book, No, you didn't. You went back to the Peter Jackson movies. And you took snippets from that. Everything they say, they're comparing it to something that was more successful and better received. As I said, they wanted season 1 of Rings of Power to be known as Batman Begins, and season 2 will be The Dark Knight. And here we are. Their idea for this was, it was going to be Indiana Jones in space with a 2001 Odyssey villain. And then the entire plot for the movie was bloody from the Next Generation episode Relics. Jesus Christ. And yet, nowhere do they explain why after 20 plus years, if not more, they go looking for debris of the Calvin. Like, why would they do that? Why would there have been debris? The thing smashed into it. Sounds like we absolutely dodged the bullet with them two ticks doing a bloody Star Trek movie. And not that the next one would have been any good anyway. It's still been a bad robot production. But we don't have to worry about that now, do we? Because it's scrapped completely. Anyway, with that, I'll leave it here for this one. So cheers, and I shall catch you in the next one.